14 seasons, 10 playoff appearances, 137-89 record, and, of course, a Super Bowl champion with the Seattle Seahawks. That is Pete Carroll, who is now not the coach of the Seattle Seahawks. It's the end of the best era of sports in my entire life. I mean, there's nothing that compares for a Seattle kid who watched his Seattle Supersonics leave the NBA after being sold. There's nothing like my 21-year drought of the Seattle Mariners, which was finally broken, but it was a pretty miserable time as a fan. But during that era, I had one thing, and that was 10 out of 14 winning seasons, I think it is, 11 out of 14 winning seasons from Pete Carroll. I had 2 back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, and winning one of those Super Bowls was one of the coolest moments of my life at a great time in my life. I was 20 years old, I believe it was, in college with all my friends, having some drinks, watching Percy Harvin do a kickoff return for a touchdown, and seeing my Seattle Seahawks win a Super Bowl. And that was Pete Carroll's time, right? That was his legendary time as the coach of the Seahawks. And, you know, there was always this speculation these last couple of years. He's 69, 70, 71 years old, all these different years. Is it ever coming to an end? And I didn't actually think it was going to be this year. And for one reason and one reason only, which was Pete Carroll on Sunday after the Arizona Cardinals game, which I was at, which is crazy to think now. I was at the final Pete Carroll game ever. When that game was over, he was asked, and he was given the response of, or he gave the response of, I will be back as the head coach, or I'm planning on being back, or I want to. It was one of those, like, I will be, I'm planning to, or I want to be back as the coach. I am not worn out. I am not tired of coaching, and I love these guys, and I would like to be back. And he reiterated that on Monday. I think it was on the Mike Salk show and Brock Hewitt on Seattle Sports, that he would like to be back in Seattle, and he's not worn out and all that good stuff. All those quotes, he said them, and he was coming back, right? It was pretty clear, like, this guy will be back, until that all changed. As a quick aside, if you want to support us, please check out at Seattle on Tap. That's our Seahawks page, where we're just posting a podcast about this. Me and my brother, we're doing all Seattle content on there. And if you like Mariners content, we will also have the at Mariners on Tap page, both in the bio and in the description. And if you want to support us, as always, at SeattleOnTap.com as well. That's where we'll have merchandise. I have a Thank You Pete Carroll shirt coming out soon that you do not want to miss. I'll post it on my community feed, but check it out on the website and put your email in there so you don't miss out. It all changed after those words of I'll be back for 2 days in a row. There wasn't much words on Tuesday. But then on Wednesday, which is today, January 10th, the bombshell. Pete Carroll is no longer the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, there was some words. Some people thought fired. Some people thought, resigned. It kind of ended up just being Pete Carroll is now not the head coach, and he's working in an advisory role with the team. And that pretty much means, from my perspective, and it's all speculation, even though it's been kind of talked about with this press conference where he was crying about his family and the team, and it was something worth watching. But it all pretty much came out to be that he wanted to be back, but then after conversations with Jody Allen and the organization, it turns out that it was a better place or a mutual agreement that it's time to move forward, and he can be in an advisory role to help the team in whatever facet it is, whether that's in the front office, whether that's in coaching search, or whether that's in coaching in general. I don't know what the advisory role means. It feels a little Chris Peterson at University of Washington, if you guys remember that. But he stepped down, or he was let go of his duties, one of the two. And now we're in a situation where Pete Carroll's not the coach anymore. And it's time for John Schneider and the organization to make some decisions. And I think this is one of the more important parts outside of just who's going to be the next coach. It's that John Schneider now has full control. There's been many reports pretty much saying, and Pete Carroll talked about it himself, so it's not even in a negative way. He said that this is now John's time to have control, or do what he wants to do, open the book, right? Pete Carroll still had every final decision on the roster, and that was just reported recently. He had every final decision on the roster on an all final say. But he even said he's excited to give John the opportunity to have his, open his book or do whatever he wants. So now we have John Schneider as the GM. He's going to be making all the final decisions probably as the general manager, and he's big part of this coaching search. But now the interesting part there is the coaching search, right? And I think that's the part everybody's wondering now. Pete Carroll is going to help with the coaching search. It was kind of pretty much said during the press conference that he will have a role in trying to help find the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, which makes you think it's probably going to be a defensive guy. That's how I see it, at least, which could go back to Dan Quinn, who was with us, obviously, in 2 different tenures as a defensive coordinator, now on the Cowboys. But he's a hot topic, and a lot of teams want him. Mike Vrabel from Tennessee is an option, and those are 2 defensive guys that I would not be shocked about. But then some people are going to look at offensive options, right? Eric Bieniemy from Washington now, even though you really saw it work in Kansas City the most, but he's an option. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Lions, also an option. And then there's just maybe there's a special guy out there, like a Mike McDaniel type of special guy, or the new young Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of dude that they have in their mind, whether that's offense or defense, that they think is the next person. So we're just going to have to wait and see, and I'm going to be talking about it on this channel, so make sure you subscribe. But at the end of the day, final thoughts and reaction is where I kind of wanted to get to here. It's almost like a podcast today of myself talking. And you can probably tell from me speaking, I'm not negative about the move. I'm not overly positive about the move. It kind of just is like a bittersweet but also understandable moment. Now, I thought it'd be a few more years of Pete Carroll, maybe 1 or 2. But I also understood if the Seahawks wanted to move on or he wanted to move on. Both sides. Because it might just be time for a young coordinator to get their chance to be a coach of the Seahawks. It might be time for a fresh start. Maybe the Seahawks know they are not Super Bowl contenders today, so they want an opportunity to have a coach that they can build with for 5 to 10 years rather than the next 2 or 3. They know maybe Geno Smith's not going to be that guy to win a Super Bowl with. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, at the end of the day, do I think Geno Smith's a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Probably not, but I don't think that you can't. I think he could be a Brock Purdy on a 49ers roster, right? He could be a Trent Dilfer on a Ravens roster. There's not a huge negative of Geno Smith, but it's just he's not going to, at the current standing of the team, if you look how Geno Smith played this year, he played great. But with the current standing of the team, he's not going to be so great to outdo the negative parts of the team. So it just feels like almost a redo, right? Or not a redo or a reset. So it feels like the Seahawks are resetting while Pete Carroll understood about the reset and he needed to reset himself and do something different. Let John Schneider take over. Let's see what we can build around this roster with a new philosophy, new coach, new everything. So overall, I understand the move by the Seahawks. And I understand why Pete Carroll probably wanted to come back, but I understand why he also said, you know what, if you want me to step down pretty much or move off, I totally get it. My hopes, that's kind of the next part is, my hope is we go get an offensive head coach. I feel like it's going to be Dan Quinn, which is a defensive head coach, but my hope is you find that Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Ben Johnson, Eric Bieniemy type of coach, and see with 1 or 2 more years. We got to get a good defensive coordinator. Because it sounds like, by the way, everybody's gone, right? Clint Hurtt's not going to be there. Shane Waldron's not going to be there. They've advised Seahawks coaches to look at other positions that they have to look at because the new coach is going to have full control of his staff. What that means to me is get an offensive head coach, but overpay for a good defensive coordinator. And let's see if with this roster for at least a year or two, because we're 9-8, unless they get rid of all our players, this 9-8 team is not all of a sudden going to be a reset, right? This is going to be if you have a little bit of a better situation with next year, let's say Geno plays good, DK, Tyler, Jackson Smith, and Jigberg, and the defense takes a step up with a very good defensive coordinator, why would they not be 9-8 again? or 10-7. So this is not like a bring a young guy to mess around and see if we're going to get a first pick next year, unless they let go of the roster. So, and my assumption is the roster's not being blown up after getting Devin Witherspoon last year and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tariq Woolen the year before and Boye Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu and all these pieces, and Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. It doesn't feel like this is going to be a blow-up, explode the team into new pieces. So you got to go get an offensive head coach that can take this offense from what it was last year. Geno was really good. The running backs are good. The receivers are good. Blow it up a step, even bigger, and then go get a crazy good defensive coordinator and bring it up a step as a defensive coordinator and make this team pop and make this defense a little bit better. Maybe make a couple moves, obviously, during the offseason. You have to make this defense better, but I feel like this is one of those rare jobs, which is why somebody like Mike Vrabel would like it or Dan Quinn would like it. It might be one of the best job or two out there. Ben Johnson would love this job, I'm sure. I'm sure that almost anybody would, because there's a foundation. They went 9-8 2 years in a row, and maybe with a newer philosophy and newer coaching staff, a new situation, whatever it may be, there's a chance now that this becomes a even better team with an even bigger winning culture. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make me excited that Pete Carroll's gone, because it could also go the opposite way. I don't mean that negatively, but we've seen 11 out of 14 winning seasons of Pete Carroll, and that's a lot. You don't get that very often. Bill Belichick, once he lost Tom Brady, they've been the worst team in football for the last 2 years. One of the top 5 worst teams in football. Pete Carroll, without Russell Wilson, with Russell Wilson, doesn't matter, kept bringing winning seasons. And if we hire the wrong guy, and then you could look at the next 5-6 years of being one of those teams that are back to trying to figure it out. And I hope that's not the case, but it's possible. So there's pros, there's cons. At the end of the day, thank you, Pete Carroll, for being the best coach in our history, the best coach in Seattle sports history, and bringing us the parade, the Super Bowl, the memories, the moments, and everything in between. Because that was a fun ride. 14 years in the prime of a lot of us, right? For me, that was my last 14 years was high school and college and post-college, and a great time in my life. I didn't get to watch it with my kids or anything. I don't have kids yet, but it was a big portion of my life when I was growing up, college, fun times, and post-college, work, life, all these things. I got to experience that with this winning Seahawks culture, and I am forever grateful for that, and I think it's awesome. So thank you, Pete, and let's see who's next. That's the next big topic. Who is the next coach? Remember, like and subscribe. Head to SeattleOnTap.com if you want to check out our merch. New Pete shirts probably dropping tonight or tomorrow morning. So get on that email list so you can get an email about it, or just keep checking the site. And in the description, you'll see our Seattle page for our podcast and the Mariners page for our Mariners podcast and content. So make sure you sub to those and help support us. I'm Sammy on Tap, or Sammy George, where's my real name. I love y'all, and thank you, Pete Carroll, for all the memories. We'll be back next time.